So you're thinking about moving to Kansas City. Well, hey, in this video, we're gonna tell you everything you need to know about living in Kansas City, Kansas, Kansas City, Missouri, and the surrounding areas. Today's topics is gonna be some pros and cons about Kansas City. I'm Zach Morton. This is Max Jones. He's my business partner. The team and I, we get calls and texts and emails from people just like you every single day that are moving into the Kansas City area, and we absolutely love it. We have over 600 Google reviews, so I'd urge you to check that out. We'll have all that information and our contact information in that description below. And we're gonna get started right now. So Max, what is our first con of Kansas City?
We're going to talk about the weather.
All right.
Some people not from Kansas City could view the weather as a con. And I would say that, we definitely have our seasons, the 4 seasons here in Kansas City. It can get bitter cold in about this time of year, late January, early February, and it can be super hot in late July. So some could view that as a con.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I would say our coldest months were probably gonna be like January and February. And during that, our really, really cold period of time only lasts for maybe a week or two, where we'll get a blast of Arctic air that comes out of the north from Canada and just comes down. And sometimes they give these things almost a tropical storm name, they're starting to, but it'll be cold for a week or two. We might get temperatures like 20 below wind chills. And then it literally within just a couple days, it's right back up to 50 degrees and we're running around in t-shirts again, laughing about how cold it was. So being in the Midwest, you gotta be ready for the weather to change.
Yeah, if you don't like the weather, there's a joke that if you don't like the weather, then just wait a day because it's gonna be completely different tomorrow. So we'll get, a foot of snow, which sounds extreme, but it'll be all melted in like 2 days. So, I think while the weather can be a con from somebody from Southern California, it's actually, I think of it as a pro because we have all 4 seasons. The fall is amazing for football weather. And then the springs here, when it, coming into March and April, are absolutely beautiful when the flowers are blooming. So I personally love the weather here in Kansas City, but some of us spoiled people from around the country that used to the mid-70s every day could look at it as a con.
Yeah, you Californians, with the perfect weather every day, it's going to be a little bit of a change. But listen, we still have our beach, like most people that are living in Kansas City when they're going for their beach vacation, and it's usually about this time of year, hopping on a plane. We're centrally located, so it's a quick hop right down to Cancun or Mexico for an all-inclusive beach trip. A lot of people are going to Florida, Alabama, beaches like that about this time of year, so it makes it really easy to get to being in the middle of the U.S. How about as far as spring goes? As soon as we start hitting spring here in about March or April, the rain kind of picks up, so you're seeing rain about once a week. And then about the time we get to July, it kind of tapers off. Our summers are fairly dry. We do get, I'm sure you've heard this saying before, it's not about the heat, it's about the humidity.
Yes, it is.
And being here in the Midwest, we definitely have a touch of the humidity. And it actually comes from the Gulf of Mexico. We have this thing called the Gulf Stream, which takes all that humid air down in the Gulf and just blows it straight north, right over the Kansas City metro area. So we get our touch of that in the summertime. But you know what? The more humid it is, it keeps the temperature down. On the less humid days, the temperature can rise, but then it's not quite as hot. So I don't know, some people really enjoy it. I think we spend a lot of our time in the summer just hanging out on lakes and hanging around pools and a couple water parks here in Kansas City, and they're sprouting up all over. So that's how we beat the heat.
Yeah, well, we could talk about the weather all day, but we better move on to our next topic.
All right, number 2 con is traffic.
Yeah, the traffic, it can be a bear on occasion, especially going into where I live in Liberty. You'll hear a lot of people complain about Liberty traffic. The Kansas City area is kind of a blend. It's a urban sprawl to all what used to be little towns surrounding Kansas City, and now they're big suburbs of Kansas City. So the traffic can be an issue from time to time during rush hour, but I think that Kansas City traffic is actually probably pretty amazing compared to most big cities that you guys might be used to. There's a highway called 435 that goes around the entire city. that was built in the 70s, and it was actually very forward thinking of the people that put that highway in.
It's an easy city to get around, and that's true. I mean, nobody likes sitting in rush hour traffic, but both Max, I think we bring a unique perspective to this market. Not only were we born and raised here and lived here for 40 plus years, but we both spent some time, Max spent some time on the East Coast living in New York. I spent some time on the West Coast living in Oregon, and if you want to talk about traffic, we can both tell you about traffic. And getting back to Kansas City, you're never really, even if there's a wreck, you're really never stopped. You're usually just crawling and moving, and you can pretty much, even during rush hour, within 30 minutes, get to your office or back home. Most people are, that close to their office or where they work that you're really not sitting on the road more than 30 minutes.
Yeah, I think that's about right. You're about 30 minutes from anywhere in town. So, compared to Dallas or some bigger cities that you might have an hour commute that you're used to, really in Kansas City, you can, no matter where you're at in town, you're about 30 minutes away because the highway system is great. And then I'll also say that the parking in Kansas City is phenomenal. I mean, you never have a problem finding a parking spot, which can be a nightmare in other metro areas. So while, you probably could look at the traffic being a con if you're used to a smaller town and you're coming to Kansas City and used to more of a rural setting, I think the traffic's not really that big of a con in Kansas City.
Yeah, I agree. Just nobody likes it, so. Anyway, let's move on to number 3. Topic number 3 is bugs, creepy crawly things, and some of the natural vegetation that makes you itch a little bit. So.
Yeah, there are some bugs in Kansas City. Mosquitoes in the summertime. I wouldn't say they're like in Canada, where they pick you up and carry you away, but there are quite a bit of mosquitoes in Kansas City. And then, if you're around, there are a lot of lake communities in our town, and if you live on the lake or close by, then a lot of spiders and things like that. So almost everybody that takes good care of their property has quarterly pest control treatments set up. And there's also termites that you got to be careful for. So it's mostly preventative as far as your house is concerned. Just being on top of that to prevent the bugs from infiltrating the house or chewing on the wood. If you take those steps, then you're really not going to have any problem from your house perspective.
Yeah, they tend to, like you said, stay around like the stagnant water areas. So if you got puddles puddling up in the backyard or a pond that's kind of stagnant in your neighborhood, then you're gonna have more issues. But for the most part, everybody, we deal with it pretty well. You just, you don't sit outside without a little bug spray on in the evenings in the summertime unless you have fans. So a lot of people you'll see out on their back patios or back porches, they'll have a ceiling fan. And as long as you're sitting around some moving air, it's windy, those little boogers, they have a hard time keeping up with some wind. So that can keep them off too. A little bug spray or a little wind and you're covered.
Another one that you were talking about earlier, the cicadas or the locusts. I think there's some rhythm to it. Like once every 7 years, they have a certain breed that comes out. So some years aren't too bad in the summertime, but there are some years that it's deafening outside for a month. So the cicadas can be a shock for people that aren't from the area that experience that for the first time.
Yeah, I've got two little quick stories about that. I had a client that was moving from New York and they landed they must have been down in the city, I don't remember. But anyway, their first night in Kansas City, they're living in here and they thought that the sirens, like there was a war, an attack or a tornado or something. So they thought the sirens were going off because all these bugs, no matter where they're at, all over all over your neighborhood or all over the city, somehow they all sync up and chirp in sync, and it is insane how loud that is. So yeah, you get used to it after you're here for a week, you don't even hear it anymore. And if you've never heard it before, when I got my dog and I moved back, my dog hadn't been in Missouri, east to the West Coast. She was scared to go outside for 3 days at night because of the sound. So it's just something interesting that we have. We've also got, June bugs. They're not really a nuisance. I know they can be in other states.
And then now there's that Japanese.
Oh yeah, that beetle.
They look like a ladybug, but they're an invasive species. So lucky for us, they've invaded Kansas City, and It's mostly out in farm. If you live out on a farm, the cornfields and things like that can bring them in. And if you get them in your house, it can be a nightmare to deal with.
Yeah,
those.
it's mainly just, it's like for a week or two, and they will find the smallest crack, and somehow 50 of them will come inside, and they'll like all go into a corner and just sit there in a ball. They don't hurt you. You can like hold them in your hands. I've never seen it hurt anybody getting bit by them. I don't even know if they have mouths. It's just the weirdest thing. But yeah.
Yeah, you gotta vacuum them up.
Yeah, you just
Fills
get the
up
vacuum. Ladybug's gone. Yeah, so that's a wild one. When I moved away, I was always curious, like, is there anything out there that's gonna bite me and kill me?
Yeah, that's probably
That's probably
a
a
touch
good
on that.
point. I don't think there's anything that's gonna kill you right away.
That's a relief.
Yeah, anything that bites you out here, there's a couple spiders that you gotta look out for, and if you were to get bit within a few days, you probably want to go to the doctor and get on some antibiotics. But
Yeah, brown recluse.
brown recluse is one of them.
And the black widow.
And
I
the black,
believe.
yeah, the black widow. The black widow. The brown recluse has you can identify it has a violin on its back. We'll pop up an image of that. And then the black widow, which, you know, since I've born and raised, I've probably only seen 2 black widows in my life, so they're not a very,
Yeah, you gotta really
gotta
try and look for them and find them.
but brown recluse, yeah, we've got that. And then, so how about some of our vegetation? We have this thing called poison ivy
Yeah.
and poison oak. And that is not a flower, my friends. You do not want to pick that and bring that home to mom. That is, it's 3 leaves. Here's what it looks like. You just don't want to touch that, and if you do, you want to get to some soap and water and clean it off your skin as quick as you can, because it'll create a rash that itches for weeks and kind of starts to spread. And
Yeah, and some people are more allergic to than others.
yeah, good point
On that. So one thing that is pretty popular for people to do around here is in the springtime, people will go mushroom hunting for morel mushrooms.
Those are good.
And you want to just watch out for poison ivy and poison oak when you're walking through the woods, because if you get into a mess of it, it's a problem. Which reminds me of a bug.
Ticks.
Yeah, that's a bug we didn't
Hit my
mention.
head too, yeah.
The ticks are terrible if you're crawling through the woods
In the spring, yeah.
In the springtime. So, you know, if you're just living your life, going to work and hanging out in your yard, you don't have an issue. But when you get out playing in the woods, you got to watch out for ticks and poison ivy.
Yeah, we try not to go like hunting season, kind of wait till everything, you get that good hard freeze, and then you're kind of safe to get, you know, out in the woods and do whatever you want. But yeah, ticks aren't fun, so. Yeah, I think that's it. I can't think of any other creepy crawly things. It's really not that bad. It's just something that, you know, you might not be familiar with.
Yeah, if you're from Paradise, then you might not be used to it, but I don't really think it's that big of a problem.
Yeah.
For a con.
Yeah, all right. All right, number 4, we have air quality and allergies.
Yeah,
I don't have
it-
allergies. Do you?
Oh yeah, pollen and stuff like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess that can be a con for people that have more prone to have allergies.
Yeah.
I don't have an issue with it a whole lot. I mean, but yeah, there can be pollen and ragweed and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't say when you said air quality, I was thinking of like smog or
Oh, no.
You know.
No, that's probably one of the pros.
yeah,
We've got cleaner air than most.
yeah.
Although, you know, when it's 106 degrees out in the summer, we will get those alert days where it's just not safe to go outside because who wants to be out there anyway. But yeah, our air quality is pretty solid.
Yeah. Which compared to LA, I don't think we have. There's not a ton of cars and traffic and industry to create, you know, terrible air quality. But there are there's a lot of farming and that sort of thing that, you know, plants that trees and stuff will release their pollens.
Yeah.
We have the cottonwood tree when it starts shedding its cotton. I mean, it's blowing around in the air. Some people are allergic to that stuff. So
Yeah, there's definitely times in spring where you park your car outside and you come out and it's completely yellow
yeah,
because it's just blowing around in the air. And,
yeah. My hot tub cover. I have to clean my hot tub cover off all the time because of pollen. So, yeah, I mean that's kind of a nuisance. I'd say that's a con, but you know, geez.
yeah, if you don't have allergies, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
I don't have them. Nobody in my family does. My brother can't breathe all spring, so, you know, just if it affects you or not. So, move on to the next one.
Let's do it. Number 5.
All right, number 5, we've got tornadoes and hail.
Yeah, this one is definitely a con for my wife. She's terrified of tornadoes, although she's never seen one in her life. So
Go figure.
yeah, there's stories, the sirens will go off and someone in the city will experience a tornado. But the city is enormous. Geographically, the footprint of the metro area is huge. It spans over 2 states. So, the sirens will go off in the entire area, but, the tornado is small and it went through a neighborhood. I don't think I've ever, knock on wood, there's ever experienced an F5 or something,
Yeah.
of that magnitude coming through Kansas City. Thank goodness. But yes, everybody has a basement.
Right, for the most part, or your neighbors do. It's rare that you see a subdivision that's just, 100% patio homes that don't have a basement. So that's where you go. I know there's some like, Texas, I think Oklahoma, Florida, you don't have basements there. But everybody here, we've got pretty solid clay, so most houses have a basement, and that's where you go. Right down to the center of your house in the basement, or up against a wall that's deep underground, and you just hang tight. You have your phone out, you have your little radio, and kind of just wait for the sirens to quit, which is nice. They, even if you don't have a phone or a radio, or you're not paying attention, that there's a siren in every, I don't know,
county,
every
believe.
county.
Yeah.
There's a couple. I know there's one in my neighborhood, so there's enough to where you can hear it. And as they chime on, you'll hear them off in the distance, and then if it's coming towards you, the sirens come on as it's coming towards you, and then you'll hear them shut off as it's going away. So they do a really good job of warning. You won't be caught by surprise.
No, it's not very often, but maybe once every couple years you'll have to take the kids to the basement and hunker down a little bit. So some people take it to the extreme and get a whole, food and water and everything set up in their basement. But then some people don't take any preparation or even go to the basement. So I don't think there's even been any deaths in Kansas City that I can remember.
I'm sure there has been, but
for years.
Yeah,
And since we were kids, probably. So, but hail is another thing, and those tornado-producing storms. A lot of times, what is more prolific is hail. So it can be a pro and a con. I have had hail damage on my car and my roof, and so we have insurance.
Right.
To cover that. And the cool thing is that really in Kansas City, you rarely ever have to buy a roof because eventually a hail-producing storm will be going over your house, and the insurance companies, it surprises me that we get away with this, but the insurance companies buy pretty much every roof in Kansas City at some point. So they've got it figured out where they're still making money, but that is a good thing. I know that is not the case like you were in.
Yeah, when I was in Oregon, for instance, and I was selling real estate out there for a little bit, a roof was a big deal. Here it's not. Insurance gets involved, it gets taken out there. There is no hail. There's nothing to destroy a roof. You can get a little moss on it, but that's your fault for not addressing it. It's not something that the insurance covers. So everybody's coming out of pocket. So roofs are a big deal out there. Here you just wait for the next storm.
Pay your deductible. Yeah, so if you're selling a house in Kansas City, or if you're buying one and you're doing your inspections and you're concerned about the roof, generally, if the home inspector finds evidence of hail on there, then we will send a roofer out to get a quote, and 99% of the time the seller is happy to make a claim on their roof and pay the deductible. And if the adjuster comes out and finds hail damage, then the buyer will get a brand new roof on the house before they even move in. So really, there's a lot more concerning things as far as the condition of the home to be worried about besides the roof and hail damage.
And the hail, it'll get your car too if your car's parked out, and that'll totally destroy your paint job. But again, insurance covers that, so you're deductible away from getting a new paint job, or half the time they're totaling out your car these days, and time for a new car. So yeah, just something to think about. All right, next our next con is public transportation.
Yeah, I would definitely say this is a con. I haven't lived in New York. I actually lived in Brooklyn, commuted to Manhattan. I didn't even own a car for a few years living out there, and it was amazing. Just, hopping on the subway, and the bus system was phenomenal. Here we do have a bus system, but it's not ideal. Uber and things like that have filled in the gaps lately, but no subway system. We have a little light rail that is just more for fun downtown.
It zips to all the fun places, but you still got to drive downtown to get to the darn thing.
Yeah.
But once you're down there, it's free at this time. I don't know if it'll be free forever, and you can hit all the kind of the hot touristy spots downtown and get to restaurants. So it's kind of nice for that, for getting around. But yeah, nothing. It's not great weather to be standing outside for a bus when it's 20 degrees below. So that's part of what kind of adds to it.
Yeah, so as far as when you want to go out and experience some nightlife, there's some great places in kind of called Westport and the Plaza to go out to dinner and for drinks and concerts and that sort of thing. Before Uber was used, it was really kind of presenting a problem as far as drinking and driving. You definitely want to have a designated driver when you go out that isn't going to be partying too hard. But now that Uber has come around, really it's a great solution to the public transportation. It's filled in a lot of the gaps that Kansas City has had for quite a while. So hopefully we add some more public transportation. It would be great if that light rail went to the airport and through Northtown and into downtown, the River Market area. But I think that's kind of in the future plans for the city, but they've been slow moving on the public transportation.
We're not betting on that. So, but the city's so easy to get around, and that there's not much traffic, especially the times you'd be going downtown to enjoy that stuff. That it's like $20, $25 max for an Uber ride pretty much anywhere in town. So, pretty slick. Yep. All right, and our last con is urban sprawl. And like Max said, Kansas City has a really big footprint, and that's because we're allowed to sprawl. Like in Oregon, we had this urban boundary that they would only move back every so often, or so many years, every 10 years or so, which caused everybody to keep building in the same area and doing all the infill to make sure they maximize use of the space. But here, you can pretty much build a subdivision just about anywhere if you meet the requirements on enough acreage and all that for what you want to do. So it allows everybody to sprawl, and it allows the city to really spread out instead of being really consolidated.
Yeah, we're in both Kansas and Missouri, so Kansas City started by being a really good spot along the Missouri River, and to deliver goods to the city. And so it's basically, you had a nucleus in downtown Kansas City where the river runs right through there, and you have Kansas City, Kansas on one side, Missouri on the other. And then there were little towns around the city, like Liberty and Platte City and Olathe, and so little suburbs that were little towns, Overland Park, and the city has sprawled out. So really, you have one giant metropolitan area that we refer to as Kansas City, but it's lots of little pockets and suburbs. And so think of it as a con because it really is kind of spread out, but there's very little density except for right into the downtown area. So it's kind of nice. You can drive anywhere. There's lots of parking. Everybody has their own yard. A lot of people will have quarter acre, half acre, full acre lots. There's a lot of estate-sized lots, neighborhoods that have 3 to 5 acres. And then when you get on the outside of the suburbs, it's not uncommon for people to have a 10 to 20 acre plot of land with their house and their outbuilding and that sort of thing. So it's very, you can really stretch out here in Kansas City and flip that con into a pro.
That's right. That's right. And that's why there's a lot of little cities within Kansas City. We've talked about, we just did the one on Overland Park, but there's lots of spots just because of that. You can, I think, just go out and start a city somewhere else. Start with a little bit of grid and then it sprawls out into a bunch of subdivisions that don't really make sense. But they've done a really good job putting highway systems right through the middle of a lot of that stuff. Like Overland Park has 69 running right through it. The Northland, we have I-29 running right up to the airport. So even though it sprawls a little bit, it's still super easy to get around. And we've got the highway that kind of circles it all.
Yeah,
So
435 ties it all together.
Yeah.
So really good subway system to navigate the sprawl.
Yeah. All right, let's go on to our pros, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right. All right, our first one is affordable cost of living. I think that's Midwest in general.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. When I lived in New York, I lived there from 2003 to 2009. And we had our first child and we thought, oh my gosh, we need to get out of here and go back to our roots and family. And we just thought we were rich when we came back. When we came back to Kansas City, we went out to brunch and the bill was like $25 at that time. And we just laughed at how inexpensive it was. So you get a lot of bang for your buck, especially as far as real estate goes. Anybody, when we have clients moving from California and moving from Texas and the East Coast, West Coast, they are in just hog heaven at the price per square foot, what they can get for trading that one door in California. A lot of investors too, they'll trade one door in California for 6 or 7 doors here in Kansas City. So the cost of living is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I even born and raised and growing up here experienced that same thing when I moved away and came back. It's almost $200,000 cheaper for kind of that medium price point, what I was looking for and what I had just come from. So it really is amazing. All right, the next pro is the growing job market.
Yeah, Kansas City is growing. We've got Facebook is doing a data center here. I don't know, that's going to be a ton of jobs for that, but they're building that up by the airport. And speaking of the airport, they are building a whole new terminal, completely revitalizing the airport to be more international. What else? We have Amazon is doing a huge distribution center in Kansas.
And just continues. We've got lower taxes here, so we just continue to keep attracting a lot of businesses, and we've got a couple major sports teams, and it's a good spot, and it's right in the middle, so it's can be a really good hub for a lot of these businesses that are shipping stuff out. You're right in the middle of the country, so.
Yeah, there are a lot of Kansas City born and raised companies. So Cerner was just bought by Oracle, which is a huge Kansas City. A lot of people were employed by Cerner and now are employees of Oracle. Also, Garmin is a really big hometown employer. Their headquarters is here. And the Sprint had their world headquarters here. I think it's now part of T-Mobile. Yeah. Hallmark is another really big Kansas City employer. So Kansas City is a growing area, and there's people. It's kind of hard to find people to work because there are so many jobs and so many options for folks. So that's a complaint that we hear from business owners a lot is, gosh, and who do you know that's that could fill this job or that, because it's not a lack of jobs that's a problem in Kansas City.
Yeah. All right, number 3 on our pros is outdoor recreation.
Yeah.
Max said this is right up my alley. So yeah, lots of stuff to do here. We don't have a mountain and we don't have an ocean, but everything else is right here at our fingertips, or you're just a quick flight to those 2 things. So some of my favorite things to do, just to start with that, is kiteboard.
Let's count.
Kiteboarding, if you're into kiteboarding, there's probably not a lot of you that are, but we have the lakes out here that we can do that on, and there's several of us. There's a group that goes around and does that on several of the lakes here. Mountain biking is huge. There is a town just north of Kansas City called St. Joe that just spent $5 million on a awesome downhill trail system up there. And then there's trails even in Kansas City, around Kansas City, all kinds of, around Smithville Lake, all kinds of mountain bike trails. There's also paved trails. There's a lake just north of us called Smithville that has, I don't know, I think it's over 100 miles of paved trail that run around that you can jog and bike and do that stuff on. Some things that we do for fun, of course, in the summer is the lake life, right? So plenty of lakes, plenty of boats. You can rent boats. You can find a friend that has a boat and just go hang out with him and get out there and beat the heat, do some skiing and wakeboarding, all that fun stuff. Wake surfing, foil surfing, all that good stuff. Camping, canoe trips. There is a lake just to the south of us that a lot of the locals will go to for the long weekends called the Lake of the Ozarks.
Yeah.
And down there, it's about 3 hours away, kind of depending on how you're going. That'll get you into some hills and kind of some, small mountains, but different kind of country and bigger lakes and just kind of laid back, kick back.
Yeah, I would say the lakes, a lot of people have their primary residence here in Kansas City and then have a lake house at the Lake of the Ozarks. Or there's also Lake Viking, which is a little smaller up north, but there's a lot of people that do that. I mean, they're on Friday afternoon, they're cutting out of work early and heading to the lake. So, but we also have hunting,
Yep.
which is really, like, a lot of people hunt. Deer hunting, pheasant and quail are really big, popular things to hunt around here. So most people will go during deer season. They'll go out and there's a lot of farmland around the Kansas City metro area, and they've got their hunting spot, and they'll get their deer tags and go out and hunt deer.
Yeah. And there's also a ski and snowboarding hill right here in Weston, which is, half hour away like everything else. I can't brag about it too much, but if you want to get out and, get your feet in some skis and go down a hill, we've got that, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty steep hill. It just doesn't last very long. So,
Yeah.
If you're
spoiled,
if you're comparing it to Colorado, then where you take the lift up and you ski for 15 minutes down. This is more like 1.5 minutes down.
Yeah,
but
it's something. Get you out and get kids for a day.
Yeah.
And then there is a cable park if you're into wakeboarding, a little bit south of the city. It's a cable wakeboard park, so we'll post up an image of that if you don't know what that is.
Some people have their pilot's license, and there's a lot of private airports that you can fly out of, and skydiving and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's right. There is some. And there is a downtown airport that a lot of those pilots will fly. I was actually got like 20 hours. I was working towards my pilot license, but I think I just really realized I just wanted to know how to land a plane, because as soon as I landed a plane by myself, I lost interest. So, but yeah, lots of airports, grass runways. It's cool.
Yeah, it's a great place to raise your kids.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's go on to the next one. All right, our next pro is sports and entertainment. We got it going on here.
It is an amazing sports town. I mean, Pat Mahomes is the Chiefs quarterback. So when, as we're recording this, our Chiefs are doing really good, and I expect that to be the case year after year.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Chiefs and the Royals, and we're actually, I think Mahomes is getting a women's soccer team.
Yeah, it's down in Northtown.
He's
involved with that.
Yeah, involved with that, and
we have Sporting KC. We have the men's soccer team.
Sporting KC. Gosh, how could I leave that off the list?
Hockey team. We've got the Royals baseball.
Yep.
Just a huge sports town, and let me tell you what, if you're not a Chiefs fan, you better start practicing now, because
the Kansas City loves their Chiefs for sure. So lots of Chiefs parties and tailgates and that sort of thing, but the professional sports is one thing, but the youth sports is huge. I mean, everybody, especially Zach and I have kids that are, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. And we like to joke that we're full-time realtors and part-time chauffeurs for our kids, because we take them to baseball and take them to basketball and wrestling and soccer. I mean, the youth sports here is amazing, and the complexes that they have for youth sports. There's a new soccer complex that's going in the Northland. That's phenomenal. There's Creekside, which is a brand new baseball complex. that is designed for tournaments to come, because you know, a lot of scouts will come there because they designed the complex to where they won't have rainouts. So if it rains, it's all AstroTurf, and it's set to drain really well. So I mean, the complexes here for youth sports are second to none, and so everybody, you know, it's a great place to raise kids that want to play sports. The high school team, you know, all the school teams are really a big deal. You know, whether Smithfields just went to state for football, so a lot of people love their sports, whether it's youth or pro.
And it's everything. It's not like just a focus on football or baseball. I mean, it's everything is sports.
Volleyball. Your daughter plays volleyball.
So
yeah, you name it, the sport, and your kids can get involved in it at a very competitive level at a very early age.
And they'll be doing a lot of traveling too, which is another thing about being located right in the middle of the country is, you know, there's a lot of traveling tournaments. So if you're one of those sports families that really likes to compete and get out there and see who's better nearby, they're going to Chicago and Texas and, you know, all over.
Yeah,
Can be a full-time job.
Yeah, the regional sports circuit is huge. I mean, there's Arkansas and Kansas and Nebraska and Iowa. So yeah, being centrally located is nice because you can, you know, just a few hours from
a lot of places.
From a lot of places in the region.
Yep. All right, here's our last pro, unless something comes to mind before we finish this.
The last one on our list, but I'm sure if we could go on and on about all the positives of Kansas City. But really, it's the people. You'll hear, you know, a lot of people say this about places, but it's true. In Kansas City, you know, like even we touched on Mahomes and what a big deal he is, but he'll tell you, like, he can go out to dinner and with his, you know, wife and family, and the people of Kansas City will respect that, hey, he's trying to have a good time, and there's not paparazzi going up to him and disrupting his dinner, people asking him for autographs constantly. Like, it's a very live and let live kind of town, and just good people that, you know, go to church and take care of their things. Don't take life too seriously. They're not too good. It's not very pretentious.
Yeah, I'd say you could probably walk up and just start talking to just about anybody, no matter what their status. I mean, it's just that kind of place.
Yeah, I had a little story around that. When I did live in New York, which has its own reputation for the people there, that it's a busy town. So of course you're not going to walk down the sidewalk and say hi to everybody. You know, you're passing hundreds of people, so you can't say, hey, hi. But here in Kansas City, you'll be driving down the road, and it's not uncommon for people to give you a little wave as you pass your car. So not to mention on the sidewalk, saying hey and checking in on you and how you doing, and your neighbors. It's people know their neighbors here, and you know, whether that's a pro or a con is kind of up to you. But I think it's great to know your neighbors and have a good relationship with them. I mean, I give my garage code to my neighbor, and he'll go in and check on the dog, and you know.
Same thing here. Take your packages in. If I forget to take out the trash, I can see my neighbors already put it out. I mean, it's just that kind of place.
People look out for each other, and it's a community that Zach and I love, and we grew up here, and that's how we met actually. is we were kind of neighbors, and we had neighboring subdivisions, and we met playing in the woods as kids, so it's safe. It's safe for your kids to go out and play. You know, I wouldn't have them play in the street, but you know, playing in the yard and stuff. I mean, you can. It has the small town atmosphere, but in a big metropolitan city. So, to me, it's the best of all worlds.
Yeah, I agree. I think that pretty much wraps it up.
Yeah, yep, it does. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Yeah, just remember to hit subscribe and click that little bell for notifications so you can be the first to know the current market here in KC. We appreciate you watching. See you next time.